On this edition of A-10 Hoops Talk, we'll focus on the subject of NIL, name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal. How do these game-changing rules affect college athletics and the A-10? Our guests will shed some light on this. So let's dig in on A-10 Hoops Talk Beyond the Paint, starting right now. Welcome to the A-10 studio with A-10 Hoops Talk Beyond the Paint. I'm Tom McCarthy, and I'm joined by former longtime head basketball coach at St. Joseph's, Phil Martelli. And for the next half hour, we will be talking about the world of NIL and the transfer portal and how it impacts the A-10. Phil, I'm sure that the changing landscape has obviously caught your eye as a coach, whether it be a head coach or an assistant coach. Is it different than you could have ever imagined at this point?
Yes, it's different, but different doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just different. Change was inevitable. Change was happening in recruiting. It was happening with calendars. It was happening with how the young players were being taken care of across the board. What I would really like to focus on is 5 guys from Bonaventure against 5 guys from VCU. It's still the game is the game.
Yeah, and the game is the most important piece to the entire puzzle, is watching these guys evolve and play. Well, Phil, I know we're both excited about our first guest. Jay Bilas is a former player and coach at Duke who has gone on to a 30-year career as a color commentator and studio analyst. His insight into the world of college basketball is unbelievably respected. Jay, first of all, welcome to the show. And I don't know if people know this, but Phil and I were talking about this the other day. You actually cut your teeth in the Atlantic 10 as a broadcaster some years ago.
I did. That was my beat when I really started getting going with ESPN. And how lucky was I? And honestly, Tom and Phil, that was maybe the happiest I've ever been in my broadcast career, because every Atlantic 10 game I'm around Phil Martelli or Jim Barron at St. Bonaventure, Skip Prosser at Xavier, John Chaney at Temple, waking up at 5 in the morning to get to a Temple practice. And all the coaches let me in. They were so gracious, and the teams were amazing. I mean, going to Cincinnati Gardens and those great Xavier teams, and then when I'm on Hawk Hill, Phil's got Rashid Bey and Arthur Yad Davis and Dimitri Damani and all these guys. They were they're amazing teams, and it was a really tight-knit league, competitive, but the coaches were off the charts good, and I was so lucky to learn from all of them.
And it's evolved over the years like everything else has. And I know I asked Phil this about the landscape. Are you shocked at the landscape, not A-10 alone, but just in general, the way things have changed in college basketball?
No, I'm not. I'm honestly not shocked. I'm a little bit surprised at some of the decisions that have been made. But to me, Tom, this was inevitable. And I think Phil just used that word, inevitable, that this has been a multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry since the mid-'80s, frankly. And the money has exploded. And as the money exploded, I think it was a very poor planning on the part of the NCAA and the member institutions to think that the players would not ask for their fair share of this gigantic pie at some point. And they did it methodically through the courts and through state legislation. And that's why we're here. And the NCAA was the caboose in all this. And they were reactive and did, frankly, a very poor job in managing it. And now they're playing a lot of catch up.
Jay, what's next? I think you and I have had conversations about what is and where it came from, but I think it's really important that people start to think about what's next for the game.
I think, Phil, the most important thing for the institutions and for the NCAA to do is to admit what this is. This is a multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry that's run off college campuses, and there's nothing wrong with that. They run all kinds of businesses off college campuses, whether it's food service businesses or they run hospitals. There are all kinds of things. This is a huge entertainment industry, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But they have to admit what it is. And in the future, whether it's an employment model or otherwise, I think where we're headed is the schools are going to sign athletes to contracts, and that will give cost certainty to the universities. and it will certainly give some certainty and stability to athletes. So just like with a coach, if you sign a player to a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th, or whatever you want, you can put whatever contract conditions the parties agree upon. You can have a buyout in there. You can have morals clauses. You can have all kinds of things that protect the institution and protect the athlete. And that way, the athlete, if you put a buyout provision in a contract, the athlete's not going into the transfer portal without a substantial offer and reason to do so. And then you also have, when you have a contract, you have the ability to say, anyone that improperly interferes with that contract, you have legal remedies. Right now, we keep using words like tampering. How do you tamper with an unpaid student? There's no such thing as tampering. And there's no such thing as like they talk about right now with the transfer portal, that there's all this improper contact and free agency. There's no such thing as free agency without a contract. Non-athlete students transfer at a higher rate than athletes do. And the coaches right now, when they're complaining about tampering, what they're really doing is complaining about the ethics of their profession. And right now, the Coaches Association, there's no mechanism in there, no ethics mechanism. Like, I'm a lawyer. We have ethics in our profession. You may say that some lawyers don't, but they're held to a standard. And you go before an ethics board. If there's any complaint brought against you by another lawyer, that doesn't happen with coaches. There's just a lot of complaining, and complaining doesn't work. Action does.
Well, Jay, we always appreciate your input, and we appreciate the fact that you've spent some time talking to us about the Atlantic 10 and also about the NIL deals. But thank you for joining us today.
Oh, always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, yeah, Jay Bilas, our guest. When we come back, we'll be joined by Adrian Wojnarowski and talk about his new role as a general manager at St. Bonaventure. So stay tuned. Welcome back to A-10 Hoops Talk, Beyond the Paint. Along with Phil Martelli, I'm Tom McCarthy. All right, Phil, our next guest. You've known Adrian Wojnarowski for a long time. What can you tell us about him?
Well, he's a throwback to all of our childhood. Everybody out there watched The Wizard of Oz, the all-knowing wizard. Well, now we have the all-knowing wizard of Olean and the all-knowing wizard of hoops. Right now with Woj.
Well, let's welcome in Adrian onto the show. Adrian, thanks for joining us first and foremost. You got to tell us, how on earth did you wind up as the general manager of St. Bonaventure?
Tom, Phil, it's great to be with you guys. Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting journey to land back at St. Bonaventure. But I think, to put it simply, I just felt a great pull back to this university. It was transformative in my life. I think all the really good things that happened to me in this world, both personally and professionally, so many of them come from my time at Bonaventure, my relationships there, my affiliation with the institution. And I just felt a great pull to come back, especially at this point in time, when I thought I could be helpful to not just our basketball program, but our university. It's we've got a lot of challenges, and I wanted to be able to help Coach Schmidt, help our players, help our athletic department, navigate that, and help try to build what we hope can be a sustainable model for us, specifically in NIL and name, image, and likeness. That's certainly a big part of what I'm trying to do every day.
I think that everybody out there needs help. Can you provide that for us by giving us a role definition, general manager in a college basketball program?
Phil, I think the GM position in college basketball, I think a lot of it's going to be based on that particular school, their needs. And I think the background of the GM, I come from a very different background than, say, Baker Dunleavy at Villanova, who comes from a coaching background, or Alex Klein at Syracuse, who worked for NBA teams and scouting. I come at it differently, and I'm trying to build off of my relationships in basketball all around the world, trying to open doors for our coaching staff with potential players, and also, most importantly, with our own players, to get them opportunities, to get them access to pro, whether it's pro players, professional information, getting them in the summertime in the gym with guys, and then bringing in certainly trying to help put together our NIL program, and that's with business partners. That's with national brands that we've been fortunate to be able to partner with so far, and we'll continue to do so. And then, using, again, the relationships I have in basketball, and maybe my ability to be known when I go out in recruiting with families, with coaches, with players. That doesn't mean they're going to come to St. Bonaventure, but then I think maybe sometimes I can help open the door to get them to look at the incredible program we have, the incredible coach and coaching staff we have, that's obviously had so much success in our conference and beyond.
Woj, St. Bonaventure's always been good at transfers. The way the portal is now, is life easier for the Bonnies, or is it more difficult because of the transfer portal and the way the regulations are?
Listen, the same challenges that we're having, other schools are having. And so, there's times you're disappointed by the transfer portal, and there's also times you benefit from it. And in your benefiting from it, somebody else is suffering from it. The players are coming from somewhere. So, I think it's just a reality. And this is what it is. It's perpetual free agency. So the challenge is to give your players an experience and give them value that goes beyond the monetary, that goes beyond money. And for us, for me and for our group, you get to be coached by Mark Schmidt, who's as good of a coach as there is in America. He just is. And the track record speaks to that. But we've been fortunate, and I hope we're fortunate with this group, that they see the value of being at our place, and not just being here, whether it's 2 years or 3 years or 4, but that it's going to be a 40 or 50-year relationship and kinship with the guys and their classmates and the student body at Bonaventure. That's what separates us. And we're not for everybody. I'm probably no school is. But for us, we find the guys who fit our place, and then we try to give them incredible value, and we hope that we can keep them. And so I think our coaching staff hit on that with this class of players, and we're going to really work hard with the portal to have our guys back next year. And then that's on us to be able to provide a great experience, and not just team success, but individual success. You hope, that allows for us to be able to keep a group together.
Woj, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it very much.
Tom, Phil, it's great to be with you guys.
We're at halftime of the show, so stick around for the second half as we welcome two A-10 athletic directors to the show, Chris Clunie of Davidson and Chris May of St. Louis. We'll be right back. Hope you're enjoying another edition of A-10 Hoops Talk as we look at the impact of NIL and the transfer portal and what it's having on the Atlantic 10. We have two athletic directors who have been around for a while on many different stages. Chris May from St. Louis and Chris Clunie from Davidson, who join us now. Guys, thanks for joining us. We appreciate this. We've had so many great topics that we've talked about today. I'm going to ask you guys as athletic directors, Chris Clunie, you first. What is the main piece of advice that you've given your coaches about NIL and transfer portal, if there's anything that stands out?
Yeah, it's ever changing. The biggest thing I say is you have to learn how to fly the plane and build it at the same time. Our coaches are creatures of habit. They're so used to sort of knowing what we're doing, the foundation, here's our schedule, here's what's coming, here's how it's going to look. And you can't think that way anymore. You have to sort of put a plan in place, and then also be flexible and willing to adapt when that comes. And what we're finding right now is you're having to be more flexible more often. And so just working with our coaches to understand how we're trying to do the right things now and then prepare for the future.
What about you, Chris May?
Yeah, I think what Chris mentions is right on. I mean, we're in an ever-changing environment in intercollegiate athletics today. And so we talk to our coaches all the time about we got to be willing to adjust. We got to be able to move. But we also talk to them often about not changing what your values are, not changing what it really takes to win games. This moment in time will pass, and it's going to still be back to 18 to 22-year-olds out there playing basketball. And so we talk a lot about, yes, we got to react. Yes, we got to adjust. We got to be willing to go with the times, which we're aggressive in that space. But at the end of the day, you also got to build an organization and build a team and build a culture. So we talk a lot about those values and what it takes to build that culture in an unbelievably changing environment.
Chris May, you are a campus leader. How are you managing this NIL with development in a collaborative spirit so that our campuses stay together?
Coach, that's a great question, and you hit it on the head. This whole time, intercollegiate athletics is a campus initiative. We are all part of the campus, and so we work very, very closely with campus development, with everybody on campus as we really look forward and when this house settlement gets done, what it looks like. And so we are working daily with how do we grow support for St. Louis University? How do we grow support for St. Louis University athletics? And in the NIL space, it's just changed. It's just added a layer of support that we put into student athletes' hands. But we work very, very closely with our campus development office as we are out in the marketplace trying to grow support for St. Louis University. So, Coach, you hit it on the head. It's super important that we are all on the same page as we're sharing the values of what a great athletic program can be for a university and for a community.
Chris, how about at Davidson?
So for us, we're not trying to have athletics operate outside of the institution. We're trying to advance the institution's mission, right? So if our institution is about leadership and service and impact, how can athletics, right, be a window and be an ambassador for that, right? And so this is no different, right? NIL is a part of this. Athletics is a big part of the institution. It brings fans, it brings alums, it brings community, it brings resources, right? It brings exposure. It helps our admissions, right? Athletics is a big part of what we do, our strategy. And so how to integrate this new landscape into that is a question for everyone, and we want to do it collaboratively, right? Like we want to engage and embrace sort of NIL and revenue share, but still keep kids for 4 years and graduate them and give them the tools to be successful for the next 40 years, right? So like the mission doesn't change, that core piece doesn't change. You need the faculty on board, you need other administrators on board, you need folks to understand like we're going to do this, but we're going to do it the right way. And we're not going to get left behind.
And Chris, to follow that up would be, what's a collaborative spirit like on a campus dealing with academics and kids coming in from all different places with all kinds of different backgrounds? So where does the transfer portal, academics, admissions to Davidson and St. Louis, how does that play into your everyday job?
Yeah, what we tell our folks in admissions, it's like, look, everything has changed. We can't operate the same way we have. We've lost more kids in the past 2 years from the transfer portal than we did the previous 25, right? Like it's just the nature of the transfer portal allows kids to transfer not because they should, because they can, right? And so there are some folks that it's going to work out for and it's going to be the right fit. That doesn't mean it's a failure. It just means that now there's more choice. Now there's more opportunity. They don't have to sit out a year sit down a year of residency anymore. Like they can go and be immediately eligible. And so understanding that, it doesn't change what we're trying to do in terms of who we're trying to bring in. We want to bring in folks that fit our culture, fit our values, can represent our programs in the best way possible. And also understand that, look, it's not a failure if they necessarily leave, right? It's just the nature of the landscape. But we try to double down on what we do. Here's why you should stay. We don't want just want to recruit you. We want to retain you. Here's why a Davidson educational experience can be so impactful. And so you never stray from what's really important.
At the end of the day, the transfer portal has been good to St. Louis. It's worked. It's helped us more than it's hurt us. But also, we're also here to try and help young people get an education. And I think we always have to remember that. And we're trying to compete at the highest level. We want to be an at-large team year in and year out and play in the NCAA tournament, but we also want to graduate our young people. And we know that education moves young people ahead more than anything else in our country. And we always have to remember that piece. There's a financial piece that's entered our system in the last 36 months that's real. And so we embrace that, and we try and grow that, while at the same time remembering that education is going to pay off for them for 40, 50 years of a career. And we're very focused on that.
Well, guys, we appreciate your time, and we also appreciate your insight. I know it's a busy time for both of you, but also a busy time in the world of NIL. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, we appreciate it. Thanks for what you're doing to promote A-10 basketball, and we look forward to doing it again.
Yep. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you guys very much for joining us and for your impact on the Atlantic 10. Stay tuned. There's more coming up on A-10 Hoops Talk. Coach Martelli will go into overtime about the impact of NIL and the transfer portal on the Atlantic 10. Welcome back to A-10 Hoops Talk. It is now time for our overtime segment, and this one is important. This is where Phil Martelli gives one final thought to what has been a very important topic, not only in college basketball, but in college sports.
No one in our game questions the player's ability to profit off of their name, image, and likeness. No one questions that the players have provided their institutions with tangible benefits, whether it takes the shape of increased TV exposure, more engaged benefactors, increases in applications and enrollment, and straight-up pride that permeates everyone who has worn the name of the school across their chest. It took years and countless NCAA committees to get to NIL, and it is here to stay. Everyone, however, should question if we are doing enough for the players, not just financially, but more importantly in the area of financial literacy. Are the players aware of tax implications? Are they encouraged to include a portion of their money to charitable giving? Are they astute enough to execute a contract for services, able to coordinate a collaboration for the betterment of their community by asking their sponsors to support them in the name of their cause? My sense is no. We have to do more. We have put people in a car, showed them the destination, told them to drive as fast as they want, and wish them well. What we have failed to explain is that the trip is all downhill and that their car has no brakes and no seatbelts. We can and must do better. Players and their families must demand better real-world education, and our schools must provide the best. The challenge, the opportunity is here. Let's make it better today.
And that's the point that you want to make, is let's make it better today. So when we move forward, we have all the right answers. That wraps up another edition of A-10 Hoops Talk. For Phil Martelli, I'm Tom McCarthy. Until next time, so long.